It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Wednesday, January 8th. I'm Reilly Strand, in for Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by Visit Casper. Visit Casper invites you to come enjoy the Casper International Film Festival from January 31st through February 2nd. A broad range of films from local and international filmmakers will be shown. Learn more and get your tickets at visitcasper.com. A federal bill called the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act of 2025 that would strip federal funding from organizations that allow males to compete in girls and women's sports has resurfaced as the new Republican-led Congress convenes. Sponsored by U.S. Senators John Barrasso and Cynthia Lummis, along with nearly 24 others, the bill would also specify under Title IX that boys and girls categories in sports are based on biological sex.
State lawmakers have been dealing with a federal administration that was unfriendly to them and with a Congress that was gridlocked. And so the state has been kind of waging its own in this issue. And this is completely new for them because it's the first time that A, they're dealing with a transgender issue, but B, with actual, a friendly environment from on high.
If the bill passes federally, it could simplify the work of the Wyoming legislature, which has grappled with transgender issues regularly for the past 3 years. Governor Mark Gordon and the Freedom Caucus held 2 separate press conferences on Tuesday. Cowboy State Daily's Leo Wolfson reports that Gordon was somewhat cryptic when asked what he expects from the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, but didn't mince words about how the Freedom Caucus took the majority seats in the Wyoming House.
He said a lot of their success is due to out-of-state groups funding them. This is in reference to the fact that they are working under the State Freedom Caucus network. However, it should be pointed out that the vast majority of people who donated to the Freedom Caucus during the 2024 primary campaign were Wyoming residents. But the State Freedom Caucus network does pay the salary of the Freedom Caucus's state director. So there's kind of truth on both sides there.
Later on Tuesday, the Freedom Caucus held a press conference where it said its main priority is unity in the upcoming legislative session.
There was about 20 members of the Freedom Caucus on hand, roughly. Quite a few of them were freshman lawmakers that we didn't really know were official Freedom Caucus members until this press conference on Tuesday. They were outlining their legislative priorities for the upcoming session in more detail. But what really caught my attention about the press conference is that they're stressing a desire for unity within the entire legislative chamber.
Wolfson says this marks a difference in the caucus's previous approach, which sometimes mocked legislative leadership in the past. Balloons flying high over Wyoming aren't Chinese spy balloons or even weather balloons. Some of them come from a South Dakota company called Aerostar. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that the company is putting balloons to work in ways so cutting edge, they almost seem ripped from the pages of a science fiction novel.
One of their pilot projects, in fact, last year was fighting wildfires. And what they did, to me, this sounds like something a little like out of Star Trek. They just had this balloon somehow magically suspended over a wildfire for days on end in the same spot. With these balloons, you can create that stationary cell phone tower that's floating above everything, that's sending real-time information about the fire and what it's doing, the firefighters and where they are, the fire equipment and where it is.
Aerostar President Jim Nelson says wildfires are not the only area where they are actively innovating applications with balloons. He sees lots of exciting future applications like monitoring cattle herds and crops or detecting methane leaks from oil wells. Grizzlies might soon be delisted from federal protection and hunted in Wyoming, but don't expect grizzly steaks on the menu at your favorite restaurant. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that no matter what happens, selling wild game meat is illegal.
They sold a gigantic tuna fish they caught in Japan or thereabouts for like 1.3 million or something insane to a restaurant. And this tuna fish was described as weighing as much as a grizzly bear. So the question is, if we get to the point where grizzlies are delisted listed and people can hunt them, does that mean someone could sell a grizzly bear to a restaurant? And the answer is no. And the reason for that is here in Wyoming and really the United States, you cannot sell wild game meat because that amounts to trafficking wildlife for profit. That's a no-no. That can land you in jail. That can land you with a $10,000 fine. Don't do it.
Hines says those rules come from the 19th century when people were allowed to kill animals for profit and certain species were nearly wiped out. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Wyoming in between weather systems today, so generally speaking, it'll be a fair, cool day across the state. Maybe a little breezy, few degrees warmer, but clouds will be increasing by later today and tonight, especially across the north as another Canadian cold front comes in. This front will move across the state tonight through the day Thursday rather quickly from north to south. This will spread light snow again across the lower elevations of the north, central, and the east. It'll bring also colder temperatures for Thursday. The mountains will pick up a little bit of snow, especially the northern mountains around the Black Hills, the Bighorns, the Beartooth Mountains. And for you folks along the Interstate 90 corridor, snow will be a little bit heavier there, so keep that in mind. We'll have another break Friday. Then another front will come in Friday night and Saturday, producing the same results. Light snow north to south across the state and another reinforcing shot of cold Canadian air.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
Open enrollment is here. Discover a range of low-cost plans from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming. Shop now to find the best option for you. Online, in town, in touch. We're right around the corner. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming. What's your plan?
Wyoming author C.J. Box will travel across the country to promote Battle Mountain, the latest novel in his popular Joe Pickett series, which goes on sale February 25th. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that Box prefers to tour the old-fashioned way because it helps him keep his ears open.
He likes to listen in on what people are talking about in grocery stores and post offices and bars in Wyoming, and then incorporating these real-world issues and concerns into his novels, which has really made them so successful. Because one of the interesting things about the Joe Pickett series is that while other serialized fiction series are stagnant in terms of readers or the readership is declining, the Joe Pickett series has actually been gaining readers with every new book.
The 25th entry in the Pickett series traces the character's latest adventure, trekking across Wyoming to find missing elk hunters. Arthur Nelson, the wrong-way driver whose reported meth use and reckless driving led to the deaths of 5 young people on I-80, died in prison on Tuesday. Nelson caused a chain reaction crash on the interstate in 2023, killing 5 students traveling back to Arkansas after visiting Jackson Hole Bible College. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports his case was unique because the father of 2 of Nelson's victims had forgiven him.
He was sentenced to like a century in prison for that in September, but he didn't make it that long. He died Tuesday. But what's been interesting about Nelson's case is that the father of 2 of the victims, and later the mother of one of the victims, have forgiven him. Phil Prime, the father of 2 of the young women who died, has said at every turn that he has forgiven Nelson.
Sarah Wimberly, the mother of another student killed in the crash, also openly forgave Nelson in court during his sentencing. Even as some sick patients test negative for illness, cases of the flu, COVID-19, and other viruses are spiking dramatically in Wyoming. Cowboy State Daily's Jackie Dorothy reports that, according to health officials, the spike is likely due to mutated strains of influenza.
We are experiencing a surge in Wyoming. We have high virus rates, and you need to be aware of it, especially those that have asthma and pre-existing conditions, and those that are older in age. Take the precautions, protect yourself. They do believe that the flu shot that they have is covering some of the flus that are out there. So it does protect you a little bit. It is just not protecting you from the one that is coming out of left field.
There is no magic cure if you have already caught the flu, COVID, or another mysterious virus. You'll need to treat your symptoms and get plenty of rest. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service plans to send trained and permitted shooters into Pacific Northwest coastal forests to kill up to 470,000 barred owls. The bigger and more aggressive barred owls have been crowding out spotted owls. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that some have heralded the plan to kill barred owls as a bold step towards saving spotted owls from extinction. Others claim it will be a needless owl massacre.
I can remember all the way back in the 80s, and I'm sure it goes further back than that, the dilemma of the spotted owls. They've been struggling for decades. There's another species of owl called barred owls in states such as Washington and Oregon. They kind of want to knock the barred owls back so the spotted owls have more room to nest and a better prey base and all of that. I wanted to stress we do have barred owls. There's nobody going to be going out shooting the Wyoming barred owls.
Hines reports that there's a long-standing precedent of killing one species to save another, and sometimes it works, while other times it has unexpected consequences. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Reilly Strand for Cowboy State Daily.